Hi, welcome to Virtual CB1A. This is Ma'am Rena. Today, we're going to discuss the different quantitative techniques used in researches. And hopefully, at the end of this lecture, you will be able to choose the appropriate statistical treatments for your research questions. So, start na tayo. How do we choose the right statistical treatment? We have 3 steps. First, you have to construct your research problem, syempre, and make sure na final na. And also, dapat well-defined yung variables mo for each of your research question. Next, define the goal of your research problem. Ano ba yung gusto mo? Ano ba yung target mo? Do you want to describe the characteristic of your respondents or gusto mo mag-infer? If you wish to describe lang the characteristic of your population based on your sample, for instance, average daily allowance o kaya preferences ng respondents, ano yung most preferred ice cream flavor nila, o kaya ano yung attitude nila towards a certain matter, positive ba or negative. Then, magsasettle lang tayo with the statistical treatments under descriptive statistics, yung mga measures of central tendency. Under nito, yung mga mean, median, mode, and in some cases, if your data is quantitative in nature, yung mga naka-numbers obtained through counting and measuring, pwede tayong maghanap ng measures of dispersion. Like standard deviation, variance, interquartile range, coefficient of variation, and so on. Next, kung ang gusto mo naman ay mag-infer, itetest mo if there exists a significant difference between certain variables, or if you want to check for the relationship of two different variables, then yung mga test statistics na gagamitin naman natin under ng inferential statistics. So, dito kasi gusto natin mag-validate or mag-reject ng hypothesis. Some common test statistics are z-test, t-test, chi-square, ANOVA, and kung mag-check ka ng relationship ng dalawang numerical values, pwede kang gumamit ng correlation, person R. At kung gusto mo mag-predict nga pala, hindi ko lang nasulat dito, pwede ka rin mag-regression analysis. Okay? Okay. Now, for number 3, you have to analyze the variables on your research problem. Okay. I-review mo kung paano mag-classify ng data. Dapat marunong kang mag-classify kung quantitative ba or qualitative yung data mo. Next, dapat marunong ka rin mag-identify ng level or scales of measurement. So, paki-review kung paano mag-identify ng levels and scales. Nominal ba, ordinal, ratio, or interval. Yan. Pag marunong ka mag-analyze ng variables, mataas yung probability na yung statistical treatment na magagamit mo or gagamitin mo dun sa research mo ay tama. Pagtapos ka na dun sa tatlong steps, pwede mo nang gamitin yung dalawang chart natin dito. I prepared 2 charts. One, yung mga measures of central tendency and measures of dispersion. Meron tayong 4 na blue box dito. Ito yung mga pwede mong gamitin na statistical treatments. Mode, median, mean. And then for the measures of dispersion, pwedeng interquartile range o kaya range and then standard deviation. Ito yung mga commonly used. Interquartile range at saka standard deviation. Hindi natin masyadong ginagamit yung range kasi sa presence ng outlier, sobrang mapupul na yung value ng dispersion mo pataas or pababa. So, mamaya, di-discuss natin yung outlier din para clear. And then, under inferential statistics, ito, itong mga kulay green na box, ito naman yung mga pwede nating gamitin na statistical treatments. Limited lang tayo sa parametric tests. Hindi ko na naisulat dito yung mga non-parametric tests. At saka, feeling ko, hindi rin kayo gagamit ng non-parametric tests eh. Minsan kasi, or madalas, ina-assume natin na normal yung population. Okay? And ito lang din yung inaral nyo sa sa statistics and probability. So, ito na lang din yung gamitin natin. Enough na naman yan, I think. Next, meron tayo ditong example para mas malinaw yung discussion natin. I prepared here 6 research questions. Ang title natin, research title, Attitudes and the Mathematical Proficiency of Senior High School Students. So we have 6 questions here. One is for the profile of the respondents in terms of, may tatlo tayong factors, sex, strand, and social demographic profile. Number 2, we want to describe the attitudes towards the subject mathematics. Number 3, we want to find out the level of mathematical proficiency of the respondents. So, may keyword tayo, what, what. Therefore, itong tatlong to, magpo-fall lang siya under descriptive statistics. For the fourth question, ang hinahanap naman ay difference. For the fifth ay difference. And for the sixth, relationship. If you are trying to make inferences about the population, under inferential statistics na, yung mga test statistics na gagamitin natin. So, igrupo natin yung mga research questions. Under ng descriptive statistics, questions 1, 2, 3. Under ng inferential statistics, questions 4, 5, 6. We have to choose kung ano yung appropriate na measure of central tendency, mean, median, or mode. And then, in some cases, pwede tayo maghanap ng standard deviation at range. For inferential statistics naman, medyo mahaba yung process. You have to construct your hypothesis first. Next, you have to identify the test statistics. You have to compute and then make a decision. Ayan. Hanapin natin yung mga appropriate na statistical treatment for each of the research questions. Start tayo dun sa number 1. So, number 1, what is the profile of the respondents in terms of sex? Unahin natin yung sex. According dun sa mga steps natin kanina, nasa pangatlong step na tayo, we have to analyze the nature of your data. Ano yung nature ng sex? Sex is just under the nominal scale. So, qualitative siya, hindi siya pwedeng i-represent by numbers. And characteristics lang, or categorical variable siya, nominal siya. When we say nominal, these are just attributes or characteristics na pantay-pantay lang, walang hierarchy. Hindi mo sila pwedeng i-order. I have here the actual questionnaire for our sample research problem. So this is the questionnaire for attitudes towards math and math proficiency of senior high school students. So sex, dalawa lang yung options, male or female. Walang mas dominant dito sa dalawa. Walang nauuna. So we are going to use the left side of the chart, qualitative, nominal, ending natin, mode. Okay? So here, the appropriate statistical treatment ay mode. Next, punta tayo dun sa pangalawa. Dito naman tayo sa strand. So, strand. Ano-ano yung mga strand ng mga students? So, meron tayong 4 na choices, A, B, M, UMS, STEM, and TVL. Same as the sex, male and female, wala ring dominant na strand. So, walang mas mataas, walang mas mababa, walang natural na order. Attributes lang sila or categories. So, again, we are going to make use of mode since our data is qualitative and nominal. Doon na tayo sa pangatlo. Dito sa pangatlo, socio-demographic profile. For the questionnaire, na-derive natin yung socio-demographic class nila through their monthly family income. This is one strategy to avoid bias. Imbis na tanongin nyo sila, poor ba kayo, rich ba kayo, may tendency na magsinungaling sila. So, prone sa bias yung research mo pag ganun yung naging approach mo. So, indirect na lang yung collection ng information. So, instead of asking them, are you rich, are you poor? Ask them about their monthly family income. And then, magbasa ka ng mga literature. Ano ba yung average na monthly income ng mga tao? Ano yung income nila for them to be considered poor? Ano yung income nila dapat for them to be considered rich. So, dito meron tayong tatlong choices and may natural na order sila. May mababa at may pinakamataas. You can arrange them from highest to lowest or lowest to highest. And then, yung mga responses nila, i-interpret natin as, ayan, i-interpret natin as low middle, average middle, or upper middle. Explanation ako dito kung bakit puro lower middle, upper middle, and lower middle, average middle, and upper middle. According kasi sa NEDA, ang Laguna ay majority ng respondents middle class or majority ng residents middle class. So, hindi na appropriate kung maglalagay pa kayo ng mga income range na mas mababa pa sa 18K. Ayun, kung i-measure nyo pa yung 9K pababa. Kasi mababa yung probability na makahanap kayo ng nasa below middle class na mga respondents. Ayan, balik tayo dun sa problem natin. Socio-demographic profile, this is ordinal in nature. So, ordinal naman siya. Pag ordinal, ang gagamitin mo, median or mode. Ma'am, dalawa yung choices ko. Ano yung pipiliin ko dyan? So, kapag po naghahanap tayo ng center, tatlo lang yan, mean, median, and mode. Ang laging target natin na gamitin ay si mean. Ito yung pinaka-effective na statistic to represent the characteristic of the whole population. Ito yung kinoconsider na pinaka-reliable. But in the case na hindi pwede si mean, gagamitin mo si median. Okay? So, mean lagi, first, second choice, median. Pag walang-wala ka ng choice, saka ka lang gagamit ng mode. So, si socio-demographic profile, kung pwede mo gamitin si median, use the median. Pag hindi pwede, saka ka lang gumamit ng mode. Okay? Okay. Next, number 2, what is the respondents' attitudes towards the subject mathematics? Check natin ulit yung questionnaire. The attitude towards math ay mineasure natin using 6 statements. And this is adapted from the Fenema-Sherman Mathematics Attitude Scale. Okay, another tip, pag magko-construct kayo ng questionnaire, tapos ayaw nyo na pinapabalik-balik kayo ng research advisor nyo, tsaka lagi kayong nire-reject, laging pinapapalitan yung items ng questionnaire nyo, mag-adapt kayo ng questionnaire na validated na or ginagamit na talaga sa social science or sa ibang branch ng sciences. Wala na magagawa yung teacher nyo doon. Tatanggapin niya na lang din yung items ng questionnaire nyo. Kasi validated na. May proof na na-effective talaga. At saka reliable yung ibibigay na output ng questionnaire. Okay, going back to our problem, we identified the attitude of the respondents in terms of their degree of agreement for each of the questions. Question number 1, halimbawa, I am sure of myself when performing mathematics. Halimbawa, nag-strongly agree siya dyan. And nag-strongly agree rin siya dun sa next na 5 statements. Then we can assume that, lagyan natin siya ng interpretation, pwede natin i-interpret yung attitude niya as highly positive based on their responses. Now, the problem is, what if mixed yung feelings niya dun sa bawat statement? Merong mga statements na nag-i-strongly disagree siya, may mga statements na nag-a-agree siya, and may mga statement na nag-i-strongly agree siya. Doon papasok yung paghahanap natin ng center. Since we used Likert scale, and Likert scale is ordinal in nature, ordinal siya, pwede mo siyang i-arrange from highest to lowest, may degree yung agreement natin or yung feelings natin towards the subject. May pinakamababa, may pinakamataas. Dito ka magsasettle kay median o kaya kay mode. Okay? So, naka-order po siya, pwedeng i-arrange from lowest to highest, then you will use the median again. Okay. A common question. Ma'am, I read from other researches, from other schools, and from previous years, na kapag ka po nagme-measure sila ng attitude, ang ginagamit po, weighted mean. Okay. In my own professional opinion, dapat hindi. Dapat hindi nyo ginagamit si mean or si weighted mean. Kasi si mean, gumagamit yan ng addition and division. And para lang siya sa mga numbers or numerical data, yung mga quantitative in nature. It tradition siya, yes. Tradition na gamitin si weighted mean in getting the attitude and behavior of respondents, but maybe it's about time na baguhin natin yung tradition. So, please don't use weighted mean. Settle with median. Mag-median na lang kayo kasi ordinal yung data. Okay? Okay. Ngayon, dito na tayo sa number 3. Tapos na tayo dito, ha? Ayan. Punta na tayo kay number 3. Si number 3, what is the mathematical proficiency of the respondents? Ayan. Dito na siya. Sure na tayo na quantitative siya kasi number yung gagamitin natin for mathematical proficiency. Based on our questionnaire, we obtained the level of mathematical proficiency through the first quarter grade of the respondents. First quarter grade obtained siya through measuring. Bigay siya ng teachers nyo sa math. And as you can see here, dun sa encoded na data natin, naka-number din siya. Ayan. O, dito pala tayo sa sample raw data. First quarter grade, naka-number yan. Pag naka-number, ang titingnan mo lang ay yung left-hand side ng chart. And, hindi tayo basta-basta magde-decide na lang. You have to analyze your data first. Meron ba kayong outlier or wala? If you have outliers, the most appropriate test statistics are median and mode. Pag may outlier or pag walang outlier, gagamit ka na ng averages or mean. Lagay tayo ng example. Bakit hindi pwedeng gamitin si mean pag may outlier? So, may nagre-research. He wants to know the number of pets, average number of pets ng senior high school students. So, nag-research siya. Tanong siya ng number of pets sa mga estudyante. Nag-interview siya ng 5 students, randomly selected. Sabi ng mga students, meron siyang 1, 2, 3, at 1 na pet. On average, pag sinolve to ni researcher, pwede niyang sabihin na on average, senior high school students, ilan to? 1.6. Ay merong about 2 pets. And this is a valid representative of the whole population. Pag nagbasa kayo ng mga literatures or kahit pag nag-observe lang kayo, the number of pets for every household, usually, hindi nag-exceed yan ng 4 or 3. So, realistic yung average natin. Valid siya na representative ng buong population. But what if may nag-exist na outlier? Noong nag-interview siya ng 5 estudyante, sabi ng pang 5 estudyante, meron siyang 10,000 na pets. So, paano yung magiging effect nito dun sa average or dun sa representative mo ng buong population? Sasabihin nung researcher, 10,007 divided by 5. Okay. The average, using the mean, is 2001. So, sasabihin ng researcher, yung population ng senior high school students, merong about 2001 pets. This is unrealistic. Hindi nito nire-reflect yung totoong scenario. Why? Because there exists an outlier. When we say outlier, these are extremely high or extremely low values, and it can pull your center upwards or downward if you are using the mean. So please don't use the mean if you have outliers. Another question. Frequently asked question pag nag-seminar ako, paano ko mahahanap yung outlier, ma'am? Ang dami-dami kong data. Okay. Usually, pagka nagre-research yung mga estudyante, ang number ng respondents niyan about 250 to 300 or 200 to 300. Titingnan nila isa-isa kung may napakalaking value or wala. So, hindi nyo po kailangan tingnan isa-isa. Gumamit kayo ng technology. May access naman kayo sa Google Sheet o kaya Excel. So, gawa kayo ng scatter plot. Pag nakita nyo kung saan nag-accumulate yung majority ng data points, halimbawa, nag-accumulate siya dito. Tapos, may naligaw dito. Napakalayo dun sa accumulation ng data points. Then, may nag-exist na outlier. Huwag nyong gamitin si mean. Okay? Ganon din, kung nandito sa part na to yung outlier, huwag nyo rin siya gagamitin kasi ang layo-layo niya. Basta may naligaw na sobrang layo dun sa, sa accumulation ng points. Ibig sabihin may outlier kayo. Kahit saan pa nakapwesto, kahit sa baba, sa taas, basta malayo. Okay? Okay. So, tapos na tayo dito sa questions 1, 2, and 3. Malinaw na? Ito, what is the level of mathematical proficiency? You have two choices, either mean or median. Basta, walang outlier, use the mean. Pag may outlier, median. Okay? Tapos na tayo sa 1, 2, 3. Punta na tayo sa question number 4. Ayan. Ito na yung para sa inferences. Meron tayong chart ulit. So, dapat marunong mag-classify ng data, qualitative or quantitative. And instead of number of samples here, para mas clear tayo, tawagin natin siya number of groups. Okay? Okay. So, for qualitative, meron kang tatlong choices, yung mga green na box. Z-test for proportion, 2 sample z-test, and chi-square. Pag quantitative, napakarami mong pwedeng pagpilian. 1 sample t-test, 1 sample t-test, paired t-test, pooled t-test, 2 sample z-test, and ANOVA. So, isa-isahin natin siya. Pag gagawa ka ng inferences, laging meron kang independent variable at saka dependent variable. Okay? So, magka-classify tayo ng types nung IV at DV mo. Siguro lagay natin siyang ganyan. Yan. So, independent variable natin dito ay yung profile. Tapos, ang dependent variable dito ay yung attitude. Ngayon, ano yung mga under ng profile? We have sex, strand, and socio-demographic class. Identify natin yung levels of measurement nila. Si sex ay nominal, right? And how many groups do we have? 2 groups. For strand, meron tayong nominal ulit. And meron tayong 4 groups. For socio-demographic class, ordinal siya. And actually, hindi tayo sure kung ilang group to eh. Pwede kasing maipon sa isang grupo lang o 2 grupo. I-assume natin na 3 grupo muna sila, ha? Ayan, 3 groups. For attitude, this is ordinal. Okay. Ngayon, decide na tayo ng appropriate na measure of central tendency for each of them. Lagay lang ako ng mas malawak na space kasi kulang tayo sa space. Just wait a moment. Ayan. So, sulat natin dito yung mga statistical treatments na gagamitin natin for each. So, pag nominal versus ordinal, tas magte-test tayo ng certain differences in their attitude. For example, may significant difference ba yung attitude ng males towards mathematics compared with the female? Baka mas negative yung attitude ng males compared with the females or vice versa. Pwede natin gamitin ang chi-square. So, this is the appropriate test statistics for this specific pair. Next, strand. Nominal o qualitative ulit siya versus ordinal, qualitative ulit. So, you're going to make use of chi-square ulit. Dito naman, attitudes based from their strands. Sino yung may pinaka-positive na attitude? Or pare-parehas lang ba na attitude towards math? Yung mga students from different strands? Or may significant na difference ba? Yung mga attitudes nila. Next, social demographic class versus attitude. So, ordinal versus ordinal siya. Meron ditong mga non-parametric test nga pala na pwedeng gamitin. But, since hanggang chi-square lang yung laman ng curriculum nyo nung grade 11, mag-settle na lang kayo with chi-square. Kasi ito yung, sa tingin ko, kaya nyo nang isolve on your own. But if you're going to hire a statistician, pwedeng iba yung maging treatment niya dito. Meron siya mga non-parametric tests na pwedeng gamitin. Okay? But to make it simple, mag-chi-square na lang kayo. Kung kayo lang din naman yung magko-compute ng sarili nyong output. Okay? Okay. Now, let's go to number 5. So, for number 5, is there a significant difference in the level of mathematical proficiency of the respondents in terms of profile? Again, ito rin yung mga gagamitin natin ulit. So, para hindi ako mahirapan, kakopy ko na lang to sa kabilang page. Copy natin siya. Paste. Tago na lang natin siya dyan. Okay. Papalitan ko lang dito yung dependent variable, ha? Ang dependent variable na natin dito ay level of math proficiency. Ayan. And this is quantitative in nature. Naka first quarter grade na form siya. So, this is ratio. Ayan. Here, i-measure natin yung mean grade ng mga males and females. Tapos, i-compare natin kung may mas mataas ba sa kanila or mas mababa. Is there a significant difference in their mathematical proficiency in terms of their sex? So, check natin. Magkasing talino lang ba sa math yung mga males and females or may lamang sa kanila? Since you are comparing two groups, so sabi ko nga dito, instead of calling this samples, let's call them groups. Since you are dealing with two groups, eto po, meron kang dalawang options. You can use the paired t-test or the pooled t-test, independent samples. Pwede rin ang two-sample z-test. But, pag nagko-compare ka ng mean, ang i-consider mo, yung groups. Yung groups mo ba for the first group at second group ay independent from one another? If the answer is yes, dito ka sa independent samples. Ano yung paired samples? Ito yung mga example ng pre-test, post-test type of problems. Yung halimbawa, is there a significant difference in the weight of the respondents after the trial? Yun. O kaya yung ano, is there a significant change in the behavior of the respondents after the treatment? So, kung sino yung respondents mo for the first group, sila rin yung respondent mo for the second group of data. In our case here, hindi. So, independent yung dalawang grupo mo. Iba yung respondents mo for the set of male at iba yung respondent mo for the set of females. Therefore, you will use independent samples. So, after mo ma-identify na independent samples pala yung gagamitin mo, i-analyze mo naman, do I have a known population standard deviation? If the answer is yes, you will use two samples z-test. If the answer is no, you will use unknown population standard deviation. Isa pa nga pala, kahit known yung population standard deviation mo, if you have a relatively small sample, the sample size, for example, is less than 30, magti-t-test ka pa rin. Pwede lang gamitin si two samples z-test if you have a known population standard deviation and your sample size is greater than 30. So, in practice, at saka sa experience ko na rin, mas madalas gamitin si pooled t-test. Kasi madalas, hindi alam ang population standard deviation. Lalo na kung hindi generic yung research mo. Kung yung research mo ay unique, wala ka pang nag-e-exist na research, wala pang nag-e-exist sa labas na research na katulad nung sayo, so wala kang available na standard deviation. Frequently asked question ulit. Ma'am, ano yung mga example ng mga population na may known na standard deviation na? Yung mga researches about the IQ, o kaya yung mga average height, average weight, average cholesterol content sa blood. Yun, yung mga tinest na sa malalaking population. O kaya itinest na ng paulit-ulit. Yung mga generic na researches, yan. Meron yung known na population standard deviation. Pwede nyo yun ma-obtain sa internet pag nag-research kayo. Okay? So, ang pinakang safe na gamitin ay pooled t-test. At kung gusto mo mapadali, i-assume mo na lang din lagi na wala kang available na population standard deviation. Okay lang naman yun. So, dito, we are going to use pooled t-test. Okay? Now, dito naman tayo sa strand. So, meron na tayong 4 groups. Ang dali nito. Kasi basta more than 2 groups, magko-compare ka ng independent means, ang gagamitin mo ay ANOVA. So, the answer here is ANOVA. And finally, meron tayong socio-demographic class. Meron tayong 3 groups na ordinal versus ratio pa rin siya. Again, you will use ANOVA. Again, kapag ka magko-compare ka ng means ng dalawa lang, pooled t-test ang pinakang safe ha. And kapag ka more than 2 groups, ANOVA yon. Okay, okay? Okay. Now, let's go to number 6. Yes, finally, malapit na tayo matapos. So, is there a significant relationship between the attitudes towards mathematics and the mathematical proficiency of the respondents? So, dito, iba na yung IV natin. Ang IV na natin ay attitude. And, according sa discussion natin kanina, attitude is ordinal. Now, level of mathematical proficiency, this is ratio. So, ordinal versus ratio. Since ang attitude natin ay may 4 na scales, extremely negative, negative, positive, and extremely positive, more than 2 ulit yung groups natin, we are going to make use of ANOVA, analysis of variances. Ma'am, pwede po ba akong mag-pooled t-test na lang? Depende. Kung ang ginamit mo lang na skill or division nung attitude mo ay dalawa, kasi pwede mo namang i-manipulate yung data mo. Another tip, if nalalakihan kayo or sa tingin nyo hindi sufficient yung number of samples nyo sa bawat group, pwede kayong mag-group ng data. Di ba meron naman tayong apat na skill, extremely negative, negative, positive, at saka highly positive. Pwede mo na lang yung i-subdivide into two major groups. Ano yung first group? Itong dalawa. Tapos tawagin mo sila na mga respondents with a negative attitude towards mathematics. I-generalize mo na lang. Wala nang degree kung extremely or kung usual na negative lang. And the second group will be the group for the respondents with positive attitude towards mathematics. Ayan. So, again, depende po. Pwede po kayong mag-pull t-test. Just make sure that you only have two groups. Okay? Okay. Another question. Ma'am, bakit po dun sa ibang research kapag ka ganito attitude versus mathematical proficiency, ordinal po at saka grade din yung kinuha. Pero bakit po sila gumamit ng chi-square? Pwede po bang mag-chi-square na lang din ako? Pwede po. Pwede po kayo mag-chi-square. Pero titreat po ulit kayo ng data. Imbes na ititreat nyo yung level of mathematical proficiency nyo as ratio variables, pwede po kayong gumamit ng mga range. Pwede po kayong mag-classify kung ang mga students nyo ay low ang mathematical proficiency, average ang mathematical proficiency, or high ang mathematical proficiency. How? Igugrupo nyo po sila according to the grades. Kayo po yung bahala. Pero kung ako yung magtitreat nito, tas gusto ko siyang gamitan ng chi-square, pwede kong igrupo yung mga respondents. Ang mga low ang proficiency, yan yung mga 70 to 80 ang grade. 81 to 90, yan naman yung, or pababain pala natin. 70 to 79. Tapos yung mga 80 to 89, yan yung average yung proficiency. And finally, yung mga 90 to 99, ito naman yung mga high ang mathematical proficiency. In this case, hindi na siya ordinal versus ratio. Ordinal versus ordinal na siya. Pwede na po kayong mag-chi-square kung ganito yung case nyo. Okay? Okay. I hope I made this part clear. Now, we are going to have more examples. Ayan. Pin-prepare ko to kasi hindi naman nating na-discuss lahat ng mga naka-green dito, 'di ba? So, try natin na i-discuss yung ibang mga hindi natin nagamit. So, halimbawa po, marketability of vegan dishes. May pin-prepare ako na problem kahapon eh. Hanapin ko lang yung problem. Hindi lang siya nakasulat dito. Sulat ko muna. Okay, ito yung sample na case natin para sa marketability of vegan dishes. So, halimbawa, ang target mo ay i-identify kung sino yung market nung business mo na magsaserve ng vegan dishes. So, sino yung tatargetin mo kapag ka nagpo-post ka ng mga ads? Mga women ba? Or sa age naman, young ba? Or yung mga older population. Pwede rin naman na based on their job. Kapag ka ba blue collar, mas may tendency na mag-order ng vegan dishes. So, sino yung mga possible na customers mo? Sino yung market mo? Halimbawa, ito yung target natin dito sa study ng marketability of vegan dishes. I think this is a good study for ABM students and TVL students. This is the claim. May nag-exist na literature na women are more likely to choose vegan options when dining in a restaurant. But you want to test if this is also valid in your area. Kasi in general, o kaya tinest naman siya sa ibang lugar, ito yung lumabas. But in your case, kung ilo-localize mo yung research, sa tingin mo ba, women pa rin or same pa rin yung magiging result? Are women more likely to choose vegan options? So, nag-study ka. And then, from your study, 1,299 women out of the interviewed women, out of the interviewed population, 1,891 ordered a vegan dish when dining in a restaurant. So is this enough proof, or is this sufficient to say that women are more likely to choose vegan dishes compared with men? Okay. So dito, since nag-iisa lang naman yung population mo, and then magko-compare lang tayo ng proportions, so we are going to look at the left hand side of our chart. Qualitative siya. And iisa lang naman, isang proportion lang yung tinetest mo, proportion lang ng women. Then you are going to make use of z-test for proportion. Okay? So maganda tong gamitin dun sa mga naghahanap ng market. Gawin nyo tong research. Baguhin nyo lang yung mga products na ino-offer nyo. Tsaka sobrang dali lang kasi nito gamitin. Mga poll lang sila. Tapos mag-check lang kayo ng proportions. Okay? Okay. Next, number 2, cognitive IQ of adults born prematurely. Burahin ko lang yung nakalagay dito. Ay, teka pala. Hindi ko pala naisulat dito yung yung ating statistical treatment. Again, that is z-test for proportion. Now, dito naman tayo sa pangalawang case. Cognitive IQ of adults born prematurely. Okay. Ang gusto nating i-claim, or ang gusto nating i-prove, ay halimbawa, sulat ko ulit yung problem. Okay, so ang case naman natin dito sa pangalawa, case 2 na po tayo, or problem number 2, the IQ of premature adults is less than the average IQ of 100. Halimbawa, yun naman yung gusto mong malaman dun sa research mo. Totoo ba na below average yung IQ ng mga adults na nung pinanganak ay kulang sa months? Okay, since wala siyang ibang kalaban, hindi niya kalaban yung mga adults na hindi premature, or in other words, isang group lang tayo, and our data is numerical kasi IQ to. So, ang IQ ay quantitative. Dito tayo titingin sa quantitative group. So, quantitative siya, and then, how many groups ang involved dun sa study? So, wala tayong pakialam dun sa isang grupo na hindi premature. Ang concern lang natin ay yung group of premature adults. So, sa number of samples or number of groups, ang titingnan mo lang ay yung 1. Okay? 1 group lang. Group of premature adults lang. And ikino-compare mo lang yung IQ nung group na to dun sa average IQ ng buong population, which is 100. Dito, may dalawa ka ulit na choice, 1 sample t-test or 1 sample c-test. As I've mentioned earlier, kung mga generic na yung study, most probably, may known population standard deviation yan. And if you're going to use a large number of sample, you can use 1 sample t-test. Otherwise, kung unknown ang population, or pag mababa sa 30 yung number ng samples mo, you will use 1 sample t-test. Okay? Okay. So, dito, pwede ang 1 sample t-test or z-test. Okay? Okay. So, case 3 na tayo. Case 3, effectivity of grapefruit-derived weight loss pill. So, sa research methodology mo, ang ginawa mo, nag-formulate ka ng grapefruit-derived weight loss pill. Tapos, kumuha ka ng set of respondents. Magkakaroon ka ng mga values for weight before you give them the weight loss pill. And then, after a certain period of time na nagte-take sila ng weight loss pill, titingnan mo kung bumaba ba talaga yung weight nila. So, in this case, kapag ka before and after, or parehas yung set ng respondents mo, respondents 1, respondent 2, respondent 3, ang iba lang sa kanila ay yung time kung kailan kinuha yung data. Then, this is an example of a paired data set. So, kapag ka paired ang samples mo, then you are going to use paired t-test. Okay? Ito ay para sa mga pre-test, post-test type of tests. Or yung mga nag-experiment, pwede rin sa inyo to. So, this is for pre-test, post-test. So, paired sample, t-test ang gagamitin nyo. Pag dalawang population lang ha, before and after. T-test. Now, nitrogen content of soil and growth of mung beans. Ito depende. Pag dalawa lang yung grupo nyo, you can use t-test. Pero kapag ka mas marami yung grupo nyo, you can use ANOVA. Ano yung ibig ko sabihin? Halimbawa, yung nitrogen content ay kinlassify nyo as low, average, and high. Tapos, para ma-measure nyo yung growth of mung bean, meron kayong variable na time. So, ang mga nakalagay dito sa ilalim ay time in hours. Halimbawa, hours. Tapos, kaya nyo na-measure yung growth ng mung bean kasi ni-record nyo in hours kung gaano katagal before nagkaroon ng ano bang tawag doon? Bago nag-sprout yung mung bean or yung munggo, bago siya naging... Ano nga ba yung tawag natin doon? Yung meron ng tail? Hindi ko alam yung ano, nakalimutan ko yung Tagalog. Yung munggo na may sprout, yung meron ng tail, ayun, ni-record nyo, time in hours, toge, ayun, toge. Toge yung tawag sa kanya. So, inilagay nyo sa soil na may nitrogen content yung mung beans. Yung ibang mung beans nasa low na nitrogen content, yung iba nasa average na nitrogen content, at yung iba nasa high na nitrogen content. And then yung recorded, the time it took for every mung bean to sprout in hours. So, halimbawa, ito ay 2 hours. Ito ay 1.75. Ito ay 2.25. Ito ay 2. Tapos sa average, 0.75, 0.80, 0.90. Tapos ito 0.5, 0.4, 0.3. Halimbawa, meron kang 4 na mung bean sa low, meron kang 3 mung bean sa average, 3 mung bean sa high. So, i-check mo kung may significant difference ba yung mean time kung gaano katagal sila nag-sprout. And then, dun mo ma-identify kung effective yung nitrogen content ng soil sa pag-grow ng mung bean. Okay? So, this is another common experiment na ginagawa. So, kung experimental yung type nung data nyo, tas meron kayong bagong fertilizer, halimbawa, pwede kayong mag-ANOVA. Okay? I-test nyo yung iba't ibang grupo. Pwede kasing, a fertilizer na derived siya sa, halimbawa, manure. Tapos yung isa fertilizer derived from food. Yung isa fertilizer derived from another component. Yun. Pwede rin naman yun. Kung may significant difference yung growth ng isang halaman or yung growth ng plant, depending dun sa fertilizer. Basta, mas marami sa dalawa, yung number of groups mo, ANOVA yung gagamitin, okay? wag na natin i-discuss yung iba pang types nito. Yung mga may replications, huwag na natin siyang pahirapan kasi I think hindi nyo siya na-discuss nung grade 11. So, ito yung pinaka-simple. And also, pag mas maraming sample, syempre, mas reliable yung output ng researches. Sa ANOVA, it is not necessary na equal yung number ng replications per each group. May panibago tayong formula or panibago tayong computation dun sa iba't ibang cases nito. Pero ito yung pinakang simple na F-test. Okay? Next. Last na. Number 5. Relationship between head circumference and reading comprehension. So, this depends kung ang head circumference mo ay obtained through measuring, halimbawa, naka-inches siya, or naka-cm, yon yung exact measurement na kinuha. Tapos yung reading comprehension ay numerical score, halimbawa sa quiz. Then, pwede ka ditong mag-correlation and regression analysis. Okay? Pero, kung inilagay mo to as groups, for example, small, medium, large, yung head circumference, tapos yung reading comprehension, low, average, high, pwede ka mag-chi-square. Ayun. Depende sa'yo yun. Pwede mong laruin yung data mo every time na mag-stat ka. Just make sure na i-define mo siya at may papakita mo sa appendix yung computation na ginamit mo. Okay? So, I hope I was able to help you understand how to choose appropriate statistical treatments. Sayang kasi kulang tayo sa oras. Sana magde-demo ako sa inyo ng ganito eh. Pero next time na lang if may opportunity. Thank you for listening and see you next time. Bye!